Good morning, everybody. My name is Lola Rain, and I'm your host today. I'm excited to introduce you to our speaker, Matt Paxton. But before that, I want to do a couple of other items, including some housekeeping for today's event. So first off, I want to thank our sponsor, Sequoia Living, for making today's presentation possible. And a little information about Sequoia Living that I would like to share with you. So Sequoia Living's mission is to provide homes and services for healthy aging. And our company was founded as a nonprofit in 1958, and we called ourselves Northern California Presbyterian Homes and Services. In 2019, we changed our name to Sequoia Living, and we are rooted in the Bay Area. We reinvest our financial returns to support thousands of low-income seniors in our region. Our communities are not just physical locations, they are homes filled with passion and purpose. Sequoia Living is a place where you can continue to grow and be who you want to be. So a little bit more about Sequoia Living. Our 4 flagship properties are in Portola Valley, San Francisco, Marin County, and Walnut Creek. We also have community services, and those services include 2 senior centers in San Francisco. We have a great volunteer program called AARP Experience Corps, which goes out to local elementary schools and does literacy training. And for the last year, we've been doing that virtually. So if you are interested in becoming a volunteer, we have a fantastic volunteer program. We also have resident services and intergenerational programs. We offer affordable housing. There's 3 affordable housing communities in the Bay Area. And to schedule a tour of any of these 4 communities in Portola Valley, San Francisco, and Marin, and Walnut Creek, our newest one that just opened in December, you can visit sequoialiving.org and you can find information about these communities. There's photos, videos, and if you want to set up a tour, you can reach out directly to the communities. Some of our communities are doing in-person tours and some are offering virtual tours. So we're going to go ahead and get started with today's program. And I wanted to do a little housekeeping. You will see both a chat box and a Q&A box in your toolbar. Please use the Q&A for any questions that you have that you would like Matt Paxton to answer. And we're going to have 2 polls today during the presentation, as well as a Q&A period towards the end. So let's go ahead and start with the first poll. So I'd like to ask you, why do you feel it's time to clean up your home? So there's a couple answers here. Go ahead and select the answer that best describes your situation. We'll give you a couple minutes to do that. So it looks like 84% of our audience has voted so far. We'll give you another minute. Fantastic. We're almost to 90%. So go ahead and select the item in the menu that best describes you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share the results with the audience. And you should be able to see that 61% of people on our webinar today say they need to declutter, downsize more to enjoy your current home. So we'll go ahead and introduce our special guest today. Matt Paxton is the PBS host of Legacy List and one of the top downsizing and decluttering experts in the US. He started clearing out houses 20 years ago after his father, stepfather, and grandparents all passed away during the same year. Matt has been using those losses as inspiration to help families celebrate their stories and get rid of their stuff. Matt lives in Georgia with his fiance and 7 children. Yes, he has 7 children all under one roof. And Matt combines humor, honesty, and firsthand knowledge to create a message of hope and help families let go of their items. So let's welcome Matt Paxton.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
Hi, Matt. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. And thanks to all the viewers.
So I went ahead, Matt, and made you the host.
Okay.
And you can start your presentation at any time. It looks like we already have some questions popping in, but we'll wait till the Q&A portion to answer any questions that come in.
Okay. And I think we're going to have a lot of questions and we're going to make time for it. If I have to go over because of it, that's fine. We're here to answer the questions you have. I'm going to try to hit a couple of them in the presentation, but we're here to help. And I think a lot of us, it was really good to see that first poll because the reality is more of us are staying in our homes longer. It is what it is. We're planning to where we're going to go next, but we want to enjoy the space where we're at. And so a lot of the tips we go over today will be how do we get moving? How do we do that? All right, I should be able to share I'll let you go as soon as I can see this. All right, can you guys see this? Am I sharing or no? Sorry.
Not yet.
Okay, who can share only? One golly day. Sorry, everybody. Here we go. All right. All right, everybody should be able to see this now. Okay.
And you can make it full screen if you like.
There we go. Okay, good to go. All right, you are probably asking yourself, why on earth is King Tut on this presentation? Well, believe it or not, King Tut is the only person that ever took all of his stuff with him. Right? There's nobody else in the world that can take everything else when they go. I always put this up here as a joke, and some people get offended, some people don't. This is a reminder, man. This is just stuff, and I can't tell you how many of my clients they get stuck because of their stuff. They don't clean up their house. They don't have friends over. They don't move to a new place because they just have too much stuff. Right? I think everyone knows my past. If you saw me, I was on that TV show Hoarders for 20 years. I've cleaned really the worst of the worst. And so for the last 10 years, I've been helping people downsize their homes when they're ready to move, when they're ready to get out. They've been in their house anywhere from 20, 30, sometimes 40 years. And that's a long time. It's a very long time to be in your home. So we'll talk about that as we go through this presentation. All this I'm going to tell you is I know what I'm talking about. I've cleaned out so many houses. Every time I think I've seen it all, then something new comes up. I'm very proud of my relationship with AARP. I'm now their national downsizing expert, and we are writing a new book on how to really declutter your home for now and for the next 30 years. That'll be out in January next year. All right. I hear this all the time. People say, one day, all of this will be yours. And the adult children here, one day, this will all be mine. There's a very popular article going around still to this day, and it's called Nobody Wants Your Stuff. And I have to tell you, the more time I spend in this industry, it turns out that's not true. Our belief is that nobody wants our stuff. That's true. But the reality is they might. Our fantasy is when we pass away, people are going to have a big dinner. They're going to use our charger plates and our crystal and the fancy doilies, and they're going to use the china. They're going to use it all. and celebrate our life. How many of you get to do that with your families now? Not so many, all right? And the reality is they leave all of our stuff. I use the dining room as an example because I think we're all coming to the reality is that, we just don't need the dining room anymore, really. That's not where life is anymore. I am getting lots of pings. I'm going to ping at this real quick. All right. If we can, hold your questions till the end, possibly, so I can keep doing the presentation. We'll have plenty of time for answers in a few minutes. All right. So fantasy and reality. We think that everybody wants our stuff, and they don't. And here's what I've really learned. It's not that nobody wants your stuff. They don't understand why we want them to have it. Well, let's talk about that just for a second. I'm Gen X. I'm 45. I did get into this business because I lost my dad, my stepdad, and both my grandfathers and my grandmother in 1 year. I had 4 homes to clean out as a 25-year-old kid. And I was a kid. I was not a young adult. I didn't know how emotional it would be. I didn't know the stories. A lot of the stories were lost because the people that carried those stories passed away. And you'll hear me talk a lot about stories on my TV show, on my books, my podcast, everything, because that's really what this is about. Your stuff is really just a vehicle to tell the stories of your loved ones. Right? And that's why those things matter. Right? It keeps our legacy going, it keeps our family history going. And so I want to challenge you now, like first and foremost, you got to tell the stories. I had a family piano that was in our family, and my grandmother saved for it during the war. And at least that was the story I was told. And I remember it and I loved it. Actually, I'm going to tell a better story. I just remembered this one just the other day. It was a chopping block. My grandparents ran a country store in Colorado, way up in the mountains. So it'd be similar to like Lake Tahoe, way before it was a gambling town. This is, way back in the mountains, hard living. They owned a country store and there was a chopping block in it. And my dad had this chopping block. It was just a big old log cut out with 4 legs. And he had it in his kitchen my whole life. And when my dad died, my brother and I, we both really wanted that chopping block. Had to have it. And I ended up winning it. I was one that got the chopping block after my dad passed. And I was so proud, and I didn't even have space for it. I had to put it in storage, but I called my grandma, who was still alive at the time, and I said, Grandma, you can be so proud of me. I got the chopping block. And she goes, oh, that old thing that the dog peed on in the basement? Now, my dad didn't know that story. I didn't know that story. We viewed this item as this amazing piece of family history. And the lady that actually created the history, she said, oh, that's gross. A dog peed on it. We threw it in the basement. The story of your item changes the desire of family members to have it or not. Share your stories. People want your items. Families are not created in the dining room anymore. For all of us, we lived with, we'd have Sunday dinners, we'd sit down, we'd do that. Families now are created in the car on the way to a vacation spot or a vacation home. It's not that the memories aren't being created. They're just being created on different items. And so where you and I worked really hard to pay for a piano or a dining room set or china, the reality is there's other items that your kids want. It's just that it's not the ones we want them to have. And they don't always represent, they maybe don't understand how hard we worked to get them. All right. I myself have just moved. I'm going through this myself, and I maybe didn't respect this process as much, although I give advice constantly. I have forgotten how hard it was to move and to downsize. And so this last year, I had decided to move in with my girlfriend in Georgia and now fiance. We're going to combine our family of 7 children. And when I lived in one place for 45 years, I lived in the same neighborhood since the day I was born. I lived in 2 different houses in the same neighborhood. I raised my children in this neighborhood. And there was a lot of fear. And until I was forced with being the one having to move, I just forgot how hard this was. So what are we afraid of? Well, we're all afraid of change. That's normal. There's nothing special there. Afraid of our independence, I think that's real. That's a very real feeling to grab around. And the reason we're talking about these fears is because the number one question I get is, how do I get started? And you got to address these fears to get started, or you're never going to get moving. So We're going to talk about change. It's going to happen. You're right. Life. It's going to happen. You can't avoid that. If you don't want any change, you should stay exactly where you are. And eventually health will catch up with you. I think most of us on this call, we're fine. We're healthy. We don't need healthcare. We just want a safer place to be, right? But we've got to be realistic that things are going to change somehow. You can still be in control of them, right? And that's why I talk about independence. It's really about control. Now more than ever, we're in charge of what happens with our lives. The older we get and the less healthier we get, the harder it is to stay in control. And I know people are tired of hearing that, but it's a fact. I see so many families that wait and wait and wait, and then their scope of options really tighten up because they waited too long and they weren't healthy enough to go to a place they wanted to go to in the first place. Fear of missing out. I think this is the one that's kind of the hardest. Right? FOMO, fear of missing out. I remember my hardest thing for me when I moved was I thought, gosh, I'm going to miss my neighbor's daughter's wedding. My neighbor's daughter is like 14. I don't know why I'm worried about her wedding, right? We're talking 15, 16 years from now, but it's such a part of the life I have now and the memories I've created for 45 years in this neighborhood that I was really, really afraid that I would miss out. And what I learned through this whole journey is it's not that we're afraid we're going to miss out. We're afraid we're not going to create new memories, right? Because we've created so many memories in this comfortable space. So many. I mean, that's the problem. You have so many memories to go through. It's hard to believe that you could ever be happy again and create new memories in another location. So it's really just an homage to how happy you are in your current life, this fear, this sadness. You guys come from one of the strongest generations ever. I don't think moving is the most challenging thing you've ever dealt with. Let's be honest. All right. Most of you have beaten much harder and created incredible lives. And if you're on this call, you have a really great life, hopefully. And so of course you're going to create new memories. Right? But that fear, it's real. And if there's two partners watching right now, one of you shaking your heads and the other one's not, that's a valid fear. And you have to acknowledge it. And you have to remind that we're going through this together, right? We're a team. This is the family I have now. 6 months ago, I almost didn't move here. Yes, that is 7 kids, 6 boys. We have a 14-year-old girl and then 6 boys under 12. It is crazy. And it's awesome. And I love it. And my life has changed completely, like upside down. I'm a different person in the last 6 months. But I got to tell you something. I'm a lot happier. My fiance is a minimalist, believe it or not. You couldn't tell by that tree. We practice happiness with less. So some of the tips I'm going to give you right here are going to be inspired by that. I'm not telling you to be a minimalist. You don't need to go buy black t-shirts, but I'm going to encourage you to have less. And of course, right on time, the train is coming. So maybe, why don't we do our poll number 2 right now while the train is here for me?
So Matt, you have access to click the poll button at the bottom of your screen.
Oh, I do.
Yes.
There we go.
You can go ahead and launch that poll. And once everyone in our audience sees the poll appear on screen, you can go ahead and answer the question that you see in front of you. And that question is, what is holding you back most from sorting through your belongings and purging what no longer is useful to you? So is it that you don't know where to start? Is it too emotionally overwhelming? Do you have too many memories that you're afraid to lose? Do you want your kids to help, but they keep saying they're too busy? Or are you looking for a professional, you just don't know where to search for them or who to hire? Go ahead and take a few minutes. And when we see that we have over 90% of people who've answered this poll, we'll go ahead and share the results with the audience. So Matt, you recently moved, and what's your answer on this list here?
And for me, it was too emotionally overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, yeah, my kids wouldn't help either. To be honest. I mean, it was a little hard because I'm a professional that does this, and my mother is also going through this. She's downsized right now because I was leaving town and she's moving into a community. And so my mom was doing it, I was doing it, and no mom ever thinks that their son has like grown up or anything. And so she kept trying to connect me with professionals in the industry that would help me downsize and help me move. And I was like, Mom, I've trained all these people, and she just couldn't handle it. It was really, really funny. The whole process was crazy. But for me, it was just emotional because there's people that I care about in all these boxes.
Right.
What are we at polling wise? We're at 84%. We got 10 seconds. We're going to go here, folks.
Okay.
And this is coming in right exactly where I thought it would be. And that's why I put them in this order, right? I don't know where to physically start. Dorothy Taylor, I appreciate the honesty. I love it. All right, we'll get into the tip topics here in a second. All right, here we are. So we are at, I don't know where to physically start, and it's too emotionally overwhelming. Yeah, and those two are combined, right? That's exactly what it is. The two of those two, they hold you back, right? All right, let's get back into this. And thanks everybody for. Okay, how are we going to get started? All right, Dorothy, this is for you. How are we going to get started? Tip number one. Well, you got to know your finish line, right? What life do you want? And what do you want your life to be like in the new space? And this is a little spiritual, but I got to tell you, so many people call me and they say, man, I'm ready to downsize. I'm ready to declutter. And I go, great. Where are you going to live? They go, I don't know. Well, if you don't know the space you're moving to, how in the world can I help you figure out what to keep and what to get rid of? We avoid this because this is the hardest part. This affects our change. It makes us address everything we want, right? You've got to know where you're going, right? Where you go, there's a million places to look. Sequoia is obviously a beautiful place, but there's 100 places to live. And your finish line may be, hey, we're going to stay here in age and place for 5 more years. And that's fine, but you've got to address that, and you've got to find it because if you're going to stay, you need to know, well, do we need bars? Do we need help getting up the steps? Like, what do we need? And so you have to get very clear, and then you have to get clear on what stuff do you need to match that need. I mean, this is absolutely spiritual. I get it, but it's necessary. For 20 years, I've been doing this, and more than half the time, people say, oh, I don't know where I'm going. I just want to start decluttering. Because believe it or not, going through your old books in your old National Geographics, and that's a lot easier than deciding to leave your home of 50 years. Right? You can't avoid this. You have to decide where you're going. Right? Start small and set yourself up for success. When you do start, this is really important. Okay, remember, you will all get a copy of this. I believe we can email it to them. So we'll get all this you'll get a copy of the recording. Don't try to start in the garage. Don't try to start in the attic. Don't try to start somewhere that there's heavy emotions. So many people, I get a lot of widows that call me and they're like, well, let's just go ahead and start in my husband's closet. I'm like, dude, that's the last place we should start. Like, his clothes still smell like him. Like, that's the worst place to start. Start somewhere easy. I say the guest room closet. I love the junk drawer, believe it or not. I love the pantry. I'll pick a smaller section of the pantry. But when you do finally decide to start, I want you to pick a space that you can do in one day. Because you need to have success visually. You need to know that you can do this. You need to know that you can be successful. Keeping positive and keeping going is super important in this. And so I would say start small, both physical space. That's why I love like one drawer or like one shelf on the pantry in your kitchen. I love doing the pantry first because the cans can actually do the work for us. I mean, if it's got an expired date, and I know half the people here are going to disagree with me on this, but that's not an opinion. The expiration date's actually a scientific fact. We can agree to disagree. I know a lot of our parents came from the last generation of the Depression, and so we pushed that line on purpose. Let's agree on this. The date started in 1984. They started putting numbers on your packages in 1984. If there are no numbers on your food packages, that means it's from 1984. Folks, that's a long time ago. That's 35 years ago. Okay. Oof. Oh, 35 years ago. We can throw those away. Right. So that makes it easier for us. Start small. And I don't go over an hour. I actually say start for 10 minutes each night. Don't go over an hour the first day. A lot of partners, if there's couples here, you'll do the hour and the guy's like, yeah, he wants a trophy, man. He wants a parade. Like, we did an hour. And the wife's like, okay, let's go 3 more. Like, no, like, pause, be proud, rest, be proud of yourself. And then the next day, start over. Remember, it took you sometimes 30 years to fill this house. You're not going to knock it out in a long weekend. And don't try. If you set that up to be a long weekend with the kids coming in, that'll fail. It never works. Go slowly. All right. Give yourself permission to say goodbye to your fantasy self. I think this is the most important, guys. Fantasy self. For me, it was my dad's car. He gave me his 1981 BMW. I loved it. And I held it for 10 years. I paid storage on it for 10 years because I was going to repair it. Dude, I wasn't a car guy then. I'm not a car guy now. My belief was I would all of a sudden get all this money and all this time, which I had neither of. And I thought I'd be able to fix this thing. And the reality is, what never going to happen. I finally had to let it go. All right. Also, my size 30 pants are a fantasy life. Man, I'm pushing my 36s pretty tight. Okay. Women, we could replace this with shoes. All right. Do you really need 80 pair of shoes when you move into a senior living community? I don't think so. All right. You need like 4. All right. We got to get real. The fancy cooking utensils, man, that's the one I love the most. Like when you open that drawer in the, every house I go to, you open the kitchen drawer and it has like a avocado peeler and a banana holder and like all these really specific cooking utensils and baking utensils that we haven't used in 30 years. We can get rid of those, right? Fishing gear. I carried my grandfather's fishing rods because I love my grandfather. He's an amazing guy. And I carried those fishing rods from 3 different homes, from apartment right after college to 2 different homes, and I never went fishing once. 30 years I didn't go fishing. It was time to get rid of that fishing rod. Right? I think we can find humorous options here, but at the end of the day, you got to be real with who you are now and where you're going. Getting connected is very surprisingly important here. I don't know how many of you are online. Instagram and Facebook are really great for finding online groups. Right? And the reason I'm talking about this is it actually keeps you motivated. It gives you helpful tips and it keeps you motivated. Obviously, I'll plug myself here, My Legacy List. MyLegacyList.com is the website and all my social media. It's really important because you'll have all these professionals that have lots of little advice. You'll take a couple pieces with you here today, but it's really important to continue to get motivated. So you'll see these, and what I love about the social media posts are, and all these groups are, it's just little pieces of advice that keep you going. And that's bite-sized ones. And you don't need to read a book each morning on this. You really just need to get started. You need to get cleaning. But if you see one little post that says, oh yeah, all right, I can do this, then it's worth doing. So, don't subscribe to you don't need to subscribe to a bunch of newsletters because that just clogs up your mailbox even more. But go and subscribe to these Facebook and Instagram accounts. You don't have to pay anything. Just look for advice. All right? Share your stories by creating a legacy list. So I started my TV show Legacy List for this exact reason. I loved the stories. I hear amazing things. I had a lady, we found a 44-star flag one year, and she didn't know how it was her great grandfather. She didn't know how he got it. We did some history, some research, and we found out that he had actually was a train conductor, and he drove the train the day to Utah. He drove all the politicians the day Utah became a state. And so best we can imagine is that there was a flag on his train and he kept it. She tells these stories of her family, and then her new modern family that's still around, they get to hear it. Right? A legacy list is really just a list of 4 or 5 items that are really important to you. They're not financially important. They're emotionally significant. Right? Write down this list and share it with your family. Because again, that's not only is it helpful for you to get the stories out, and a lot of times you're the last people that have those stories. So you do have an obligation to write them down or at least record them and share them. But at some point, it's going to help your family want some of these items. Right? Let's talk again real quick about this. This isn't on my list, but this is important. Go ahead and start sharing those legacy list items now. Like if you want someone to have a really important item, give it to them. Don't wait till you're dead or till you move. Like if you love these items so much and you love these people so much, why are they sitting in your garage or why are they sitting in your attic or why are they sitting on a shelf that nobody sees? If you really want these items out there, give them away now. So that way there's no one arguing over your stuff 20 years from now. But get the items into the hands of the people you want to have them. All right, let go of the guilt. Why am I saying let go of the guilt? Because so many people, for some reason over 50, there is a guilt that is within, and they feel obligated to handle all this stuff for their parents. Some of you on this call right now, your parents are still alive, and you're dealing with your parents' estate, your estate, and now your adult children, because for some reason adult children don't grow up. I'm not really sure why. I mean, it's very important that you let go of this guilt. If you have something sitting in the attic, that's okay. All right. If you got something sitting in the garage, so what? If you hire a professional to help you get rid of some stuff, great. You know, the really awful version of this is my mom used to always say to me, well, what would your grandfather think? And I was getting rid of some of his clothes the other day. She said, well, what would your grandfather think? And I'm like, man, he has been dead for 20 years. I think he's fine with it. Like, I really don't think it bothers him anymore. And that's a blunt way to say that, but you don't need to carry this guilt with you. All right? You've earned the right to do whatever you want to do. And this is a quote that I see a lot. All right. When you find an item in the attic, remember it's a stepping stone. When you left it there, you needed to get through whatever you were going through in your life. Right? Now you don't need it anymore because you're growing up. Right? And I know I'm saying this to a bunch of adults, but a lot of times, you know, just because we're 75 years old or 65 years old right now, we're still someone's daughter, we're still someone's son, and we still look to our parents like that, and we feel obligated to hold on to things. You don't need to, right? Your family would love you to live a better life and get rid of this stuff. It amazes me how much stuff holds people back. All right. Most common phone calls I get. What do I do with all my stuff? All right, it's real simple. Keep, donate, sell, recycle, or trash. All right. What am I doing? Okay, we're going to talk about, let's just go ahead and the whole thing here. All right, who's going to help me? This is really important. All right. And let's go back up to one. What do I do with all my stuff? If you know where you're going, they most likely have someone, a professional, that will help you figure out what will fit in your new apartment, right, or your new location. Please ask for help. You are an independent, you're a group of people. Anyone really over 65 is a seriously independent group that does things on their own, and you don't like to ask for help. Now is the time to do it. People all the what can I do to help you? I got it. No, now is the time to ask for help. All right. So first, we're still on number one here. Please go out and ask wherever you're looking to move, or hire a professional, but have someone help you map out physically. Use a ruler to figure out what's going to fit. I know you probably can squeeze it all in there, but that's not the point. We're trying to live comfortably. We're trying not to have so much stuff that overwhelms us. Use the math to tell you what fits, right? Get rid of some things. Let your partner help decide that. And then once you get rid of it, you'll have more space, right? Who is going to help me? Talk to your move-in specialist or a local move-in specialist, someone at the community, a local move manager. That website is NASM, NASMM.org. That's senior move managers. These are professionals. I was one for 20 years. These are professionals that have been trained. They know every little trick you need to do to help you downsize. They are not cheap. You would pay them for about an hour. This is what grandchildren did 30, 40 years ago. You probably did this for your grandparents. Guess what? Your grandkids are not going to do this now. All right. So don't be afraid to hire a professional. If you are concerned to do this yourself, please go to my website, mylegacylist.com. We've got tons of help there, tons of helpful hints, articles, tips, everything. Who else should you ask? Your adult kids. Get them involved. But I don't recommend bringing everybody in the same day. That is too overwhelming. I've seen so many families that try to bring everyone in at one time, and then it really just becomes an argument between one of the kids, right, or a cousin or somebody. Don't bring the world. I say keep it to like 2 or 3 people total. Don't be afraid to ask neighbors, family, friends. You'd be amazed how many, like a lot of times I have a lot of people that don't have adult children anymore. They're not around. And so they say, well, I'm single. I don't know no one's here to help me. Call somebody at church, call a neighbor. You would be amazed how many people actually want to help. Think of how many people offer to do things for you. Now's the time to answer and say, I need your help. And I got to be honest. A lot of times the coolest thing is like a neighbor or a friend, someone that's not family, because believe it or not, a stranger cares more about your stories than your kids do. Stranger is 100% in. They're blown away. They're excited. They want to hear about it. The kids are often occupied and can't be bothered. Right? By the way, don't pay the grandkids. Stop paying the grandkids. They need to do it because it's their job. and they're lucky enough to hear your stories. So one of my kids wanted me to pay him $40 to cut the lawn. I'm like, dude, I'll do it for $40. That's a lot of money. Kids just have a weird view of money these days. This is not about paying kids. This is about engaging your family and sharing your stories. Right? Where do I sell my stuff? This is number. I apologize for the typo here, but there's a lot of important places here where you're going to sell. Right? Local estate shops are probably the most comfortable, but they have the lowest audience. You'll notice there is no mention of a yard sale here. Guess what? They don't work anymore. They're pointless. No one comes to a yard sale to maximize, to pay you as much money as possible. Right? They're like, $10, I'll give you a nickel. Right? It's not worth your time. It's never worth your time. So I look at local estate shops that have a national presence online. Online's the key word there. You want these things to be listed online. And if they are, more people see it. All right, the company I use is EBTH. That's EBTH.com. It's called Everything But the House, or Max Sold. Both of them are good. EBTH is more when you have higher end items. Max Sold is when you have lower end items, but you have a lot of them. Say you've moved everything you want to move to your house or to your new apartment, and you've cleaned it out, and then there's like 60% of the stuff is still there, and you want to get rid of it. The kids have all gotten the stuff they want. Max Sold's a really good group. They'll come in, they'll list it all, and they'll sell it in like a weekend. Set your expectations really low, like insanely low. You will not get what you paid for it. You will not get what your dad paid for it. You'll be lucky to get 10%. 10% is the number I just said. I just moved everything I didn't want. I packed everything I wanted. I gave away the stuff I didn't care about, and I got $4,500 for all the furniture in my house. That included the china. I could not sell the china. I tried, and nobody would take the china. Even replacements. Some of you I noticed in the comments wrote replacements. They don't even really want your stuff anymore. Right? EBTH, Max Sold. Facebook Marketplace is a great tool. If you're on Facebook and you feel comfortable doing that, it sells for low. I sold a lot of my furniture on there. It's really important because it's safe. Right? You know the person, you can see them. Don't be afraid to sell on Facebook Marketplace. And what's nice about Facebook Marketplace, you test you can go on EBTH or Max Sold or any online site. You can see what it usually sells for. Do it like 10% less, right? And then if people are buying all your stuff right away, that means you're pricing it too low. If they're not buying it at all, you're pricing it too high. Right? These buy nothing groups are wonderful. They are just a way to give stuff away. And if your stuff doesn't sell in a day, it's probably not going to sell. Either you're asking too much or nobody wants it. So I say you're better off giving these things away on these buy nothing groups. So for you guys, you would say buy nothing San Francisco or buy nothing, add your neighborhood name in Facebook, and you'll see the groups come up. And just watch it for a day or two before you post, and you'll see how to do it. But it's really awesome. You end up giving stuff to people in your neighborhood that actually cares. Right? And donate to active charities. I'm not really big with like Goodwill or some of the big box ones. I tend to give away to smaller charities, local charities that will have immediate use. Right? They're giving my stuff away to people that really need it. I always tell a story of my son. We ran a 5K a couple years ago, and we were walking. He didn't want to run, and the police car was right behind us. We were at the very end, and he said, "Dad, if we turn around and go the other way, we're in first place." I thought that was a great way to look at life, and that's the way I look at donation. I mean, if we're on this call, you're in a better place than a lot of people. Are you really going to spend 2 weeks trying to get $2,000 off of stuff you bought years ago? Who cares? If you don't really need the money, give it to someone that actually benefits from it. I mean, I give away as much as I can. The more you give away, the better you'll feel. And I just stand by that forever. The emotional value of giving away is much greater than the financial value that you'll get. You'll actually be frustrated with how little you get for your stuff. And I've been doing this 20 years. Just be aware of that. I mean, it's just not worth it. And then putting it in storage is a total waste of money. All right, we've done poll number 2. We're at 140. I got a hunch we got a lot of questions. I was going to show you guys a clip of my TV show. I'll show it real quick. My team of specialists, Jamie, Mike, and Avi, help me help people downsize their homes and settle estates. As the largest population of baby boomers in American history transition towards retirement, they and their families face the overwhelming task of emptying their homes to move. We help them sift through a lifetime of possessions, bingo, heirlooms, and collectibles.
Oh my gosh.
She's gonna love that. To help them find the missing family treasures that mean the most to them. And along the way, they'll discover that the most important museum in the world may be in their family's basement.
Oh. I've never seen that. That is cool looking.
From attics to cellars, closets to cupboards, we uncover the memories they want to preserve. This is living history. This is what we're here to find. Let's go and discover the compelling, personal, and often historical stories spanning generations that are their family's legacy.
Matt, I love your recommendation of each of us making a legacy list, you know, those top few items that have the sentimental value or the history behind it that have a story to tell. We have a lot of questions about things that may be sentimental in nature, finding out if things do have value, and then some more tactical questions around how to actually sell using things like Facebook Marketplace. I wanted you to first address the safety of Facebook Marketplace and other online shopping.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Okay, so Craigslist is a very scary place. I don't go on there. On Facebook, I'm not saying anything online can be, you got to be cautious, right? I typically don't leave, I actually don't, I've never let people come to my house. I'll meet them up the street and I'll bring the item and I'd rather meet them and hand it to them. You can do, even with COVID, you can pay things online now. You don't have to worry about that. If you feel more comfortable having an adult child help you with this, fine. But Craigslist is just filled with scammers. I stay away from it. eBay is just confusing. I got to be honest, I'm a professional and it's too confusing for me. I abandoned it years ago. If you're selling your whole house, Max Sold or EBTH is really good if you're selling all the contents, but one-off items, I really love Facebook Marketplace. It's simple and you can look at the buyer. You'll get lots of offers, but what I love is you can look to see if you know the person or not. It's really localized. And I like, and same with the buy nothing groups. And so I love that I can look online and be like, oh, well, that's Jane's friend. Okay, I feel more comfortable about that. Or, oh, this person doesn't know anybody I know. I'm not even going to respond to them. I just like that you're a little more in control of the safety there. If you can afford it, let a professional do all of it. But sometimes it's just one or two items, and you just put it up. I mean, it's not about maximizing. You're not going to make millions of dollars off your stuff. If it is really high end stuff, you need to have an appraiser involved anyway.
Now, using Facebook Marketplace, would you only recommend cash or Venmo or
I prefer online. I stay away from cash if you can. I set up a Venmo account or a PayPal account. That's what I would do. And it's pretty hard to get. I mean, now people will say like, hey, I'm going to give you cash. Will you Venmo me money back? Don't do that. If it feels even a little sketchy to you, it probably is, like in any of these scenarios. So just have them pay you. That's it. And you're in charge. If they don't feel desperate. Like if you don't like the way it's going, say, otherwise just don't sell it. Somebody else will want it. Can I talk about appraisers real quick on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And the appraisers may fall into the category of the next two questions as well. So we'll go ahead and let you.
So a lot of times you have stuff that's actually nice, right? Everything we just talked about is the stuff you don't want, your kids don't want it, and whatever you get for it, you get for it. There are some shops by the way, you can, what's the word? Not concession shops, but they'll take consignment shops. They're far in between now. They don't really succeed financially anymore. And it's rare to get that. If it's a really nice piece of furniture you don't want to sell for $20, fine, put it there if it makes you feel comfortable. But again, set your expectations really low. Art is like the hardest thing to sell, right? Because we have lots of it. We usually have 3 generations of art right now. We have our grandparents, we have our parents, and now we have ours, right? And you're moving into your new home with 4 walls. I mean, you got to know your space where you're going. I mean, I had to do that here. my fiance is a minimalist. We have windows everywhere for light. And the irony is like we found out pretty quickly my math was I could bring 2 framed paintings. That's what fit in this house. My dad was an artist. My family name is known from where I came from. My dad was, I have like 100 of my dad's art. How do you pick 2, right? It was really hard. So I actually had an appraiser come in and look at that for me. An appraiser is not a seller. An appraiser is just someone that you're going to pay. They're going to come to your home and they're going to look at all your stuff and they're going to say, this is what it's worth. This is what it's worth. This is what it's worth. Many of you may have already done that for an insurance situation, but that's typically their job. Their job is to do it for insurance value, not necessarily retail value, what it's going to sell. They're giving that price based on replacement value. So make sure you're asking them, well, this is for sale, not for insurance. Now, here's the other thing. If they offer you to buy the stuff, they're not a very good appraiser. A good appraiser should never offer to buy it. There's 2 websites you want to look at. If it's jewelry, I would encourage all jewelry, unless you know it's like straight up costume jewelry. And by the way, some costume jewelry is very collectible and still sells. So don't think it's not anything. But if it's really hardcore jewelry, you want to go to the American Society of Appraisers. American Society of Appraisers. It's ASA. That website is appraiser.org. Appraisers or appraiser. Yeah, appraisers.org. It's the ASA. That's jewelry only. Everything else is the ISA, International Society of Appraisers. There's all these different tests these people take. They've dedicated their life to knowing the history of this stuff and the value. They're professionals. And so you're going to pay them. Expect to pay anywhere from 150 to 250 bucks an hour. But a lot of times when you're making that decision, do I give it away? Do I keep it? An appraiser will help. Like if your piano is worth $300, you might want to give that to your youngest son. If it's worth $30,000, you might not want to give that to your youngest son. You might decide to sell that and go on vacation. And that's okay, because it's your stuff. You can do whatever you want with it. You don't owe anybody anything.
So regarding appraisers and sellers, for people who live in the Bay Area or San Francisco, the website you just mentioned, is that a place to find reputable people in the Bay Area?
Yeah. And you're lucky you got a lot of good people locally, both online sellers. I mean, you could not be in a better market for selling things online and demanding a high value. I mean, what you need, if you're selling something, the value is in more people seeing it, more people buying it. You live in one of the most populous areas in the country. You're in a good situation. Many people will want what you're selling. So just make sure you've talked to a professional. Go on those 2 websites, appraisers.org or ISA-appraisers.org. But look at those 2 websites. You'll find a group, someone that you like, and don't be afraid to call a couple. And
can you give us those web addresses one more time, and I'll put them in the chat to the audience.
ISA-appraisers.org. Sorry, ISA-appraisers.org. That's the International Society. So that's anything other than jewelry. And appraisers or appraiser.org is the American Society of Appraisers, and that's just jewelry. Jewelry, please have it appraised. You would be shocked, absolutely shocked. And a lot of times you have a bunch of gold you just don't want, and you can find a local melt shop that'll still pay you quite a bit of money. You'd be shocked. But don't be afraid to give some gold away to grandkids that don't even exist yet. I like to take a Ziploc bag for each. So if I got 7 kids now, so I'm assuming they each have 2 or 3 kids. So let's say they have 3, that's 21. I'm going to create 21 Ziploc bags, keep them in a little bucket. I'll throw a couple pictures from my life. I'll put the stories in there. I'll put some jewelry in there that's not really that expensive, but it's just fun. And so by the time I'm gone, there will be each grandkid that I may or may not know will have a little gift bag from me. It's like a time capsule of my life, and it tells my story. It's a poor man's time capsule. You just use a Ziploc bag. I love it. You can do it tonight. It's super, super easy.
So let's talk about books, National Geographics or magazines, and baseball cards, football cards, and basketball cards. What do you suggest for those types of items?
So let's start with the good news. What do you think I'm going to talk about? The baseball cards, the stamps, those are collectibles. There's a very strong market for them right now. There are lots of companies that will actually sort through your cards for you. You pay them by the hour, and then they'll help you sort them and find the value. You're not going to hire an appraiser for that unless it's super high end. If you know it's super high end, if it's pre 1985, 1985 is when the card companies started really like mass producing. So pre 1985, they're a lot more scarce. Right now, is something valuable just because it's old? Not necessarily. All right, stamps have gone up through the roof because most of us, I'm 45, my generation didn't touch them. My dad's generation didn't really touch them. So we're getting our grandfather's stamps. Well, those are over 100 years old now. And the problem with stamps is there's not a lot of people left that know a lot about it. There's a few, but there's not thousands. So you want to go online and find some experts. But all of the answer to all these is talk to a local expert, right? Go online, find a local expert. Some shops will have them, but for the most part, they're going to be online. But your cards are worth something. Your stamps are worth something. Coins are always worth something. I mean, coins are good. Your magazines, I'm sorry, recycle them. National Geographic, I see them. So what makes something valuable is that there's not many of them. I see the newspaper with JFK every day. I see the newspaper with the landing of the moon every day. I see every stacks and stacks and stacks of every National Geographic bundled in twine. See them all the time. Life magazine as well. Sorry, I see them all the time. Your books are tough, right? Because books are really a kind of a trophy of time. Bear with me on this theory. Book is a very personal thing to each one of us. And we read it and it was a part of that moment in time in our life. And so books are really, it's like telling someone their grandkid's not very good looking. I mean, a book, you tell me my book's not worth anything. I'm like, man, I read that book when I got divorced. That book saved me. And that's great for you. It's a great story, but the guy can sell it for maybe 50 cents. I focus more on donation, bulk donation if you can. Encyclopedia, this is going to blow your mind. Encyclopedias, you can't donate anymore. Libraries will not take them because they don't need them. Everything they have is on your phone. All right. That's a sad thing. Books are so important. I'm not saying they're not worth anything, but the reality of it is you're better off recycling them. And if you have a ton, if you have like thousands and thousands, talk to a library. They might give you the labor to come pick them up. And that's valuable. Just not having to pay someone thousands of dollars to move them.
So let's talk about storage sheds. There's been a few questions about storage sheds, and I know it's 10:52 right now. So anybody who wants to stay on the call, please do so. Matt's still going to be answering questions. And then this recording will be available. We will email it out to everybody in a couple of days as soon as we get that back and edited. So yes, let's talk about storage sheds.
So in all fairness, I'm sponsored by a storage company, so I have to share that. That being said, I'm not for it, right? Like whatever location you're living in, your stuff should fit in that space. And if not, that means you have too much space. I mean, I always try to find an analogy. Like I'm not going to give somebody $100 to go to a restaurant to tell me what it tastes like. Right? I'm going to go do that myself. I'm going to enjoy it myself. Your stuff is supposed to be enjoyed, shared, and seen. So storage is tough. There are some really good, in your area you have them, really good companies that store on demand. They store the item, not the whole shed. Right? A lot of the communities you'll be moving into do have storage on site. So if you're gonna, like, where I love storage is for like Christmas decorations, holiday decorations, things that you're going to use temporarily in your apartment or in your house, but you don't necessarily, you're not going to just keep it there forever. The worst situation I ever saw, I had a lady one time, she had a storage locker for her good furniture. And it was a big 20 by 20 unit, or 10 by 30 or 20 by 20. It's a huge unit. She was paying it was like almost $200 a month for 30 years. We did the math, unfortunately, and it was like $120,000 roughly she had spent on storage. The items were not worth 20 grand. And she had spent 120 grand to store it. If she'd invested that money over the 30 years, it was like $250 some thousand she would have had. for her good furniture. All right. I can put the math in there, but no one intends to have storage for a long time, but it just kind of works out that way. I didn't intend to be a size 36 jeans. I was always a 30 15 years ago. I've been a 36 for a long time. I still believe I'm going to get to it. Storage units I believe I'm going to get to it. I say be cautious. If you do have them, give yourself a firm limit, like 6 months, firm. Pay the prepay the 6 months, and then you have to go back and pay again. That makes you not do it. I say my issue is you only have enough space, right? You only have enough space in your house. That's where your stuff needs to fit. If not, you have too much stuff.
And also,
That's what I got to add to that.
Oh, sorry.
And you're not your adult children's storage unit. Okay? It's not your job. My mom actually sent me an invoice after college because all my stuff was still at her house. And she said, hey, I'm throwing it away. I've had clients that are not moving because they have all their adult children's stuff and grandkids stuff in their house. That's ridiculous. Make them come get it. Give them say like in 2 months on this day, we're selling the stuff. And it's okay. It's not your job to store all this stuff. I'm embarrassed to even talk about that, but I see it so much, I have to bring it up.
So we're going to take one more question, and then we're going to do our best to answer all of the unanswered questions via the email that we send you in a couple of days with the recording. So the last question that I want to ask you, Matt, is about things such as pictures, documents, anything that could have a genealogical value to it, photo albums, anything about family history. What are your suggestions around that?
Okay. I'm really getting into genealogy right now. In fact, this week is Roots Tech. It's a huge trade show for genealogy. I'm learning all about it. I'm just finding out about a lot of mine. I do save pictures, papers, just pare it down. You need to wear cotton gloves. Get some cotton gloves, because I've learned this year, man, having the wrong glove, if you just touch it with your bare hands, the oil on your hand can destroy the paper. I actually found some parchment this year. We found a document from the 1600s that was parchment. It was amazing. Here's my advice. Try to make the pile more manageable and store it in a waterproof place. All right. You can get some really nice either photo boxes, which are a special kind of cardboard. They're acid free. You can order them online, or you can just go to Target and get the waterproof boxes. But limit it to like what you can carry, like 4. If you're doing research, 4. If you're not doing research, 2. All right. But get them big enough that they go in, but you got to be able to carry them, and you got to be able to put them in and out of your car. The best way to kind of trim it down is duplicates. We all had photos from 24 Hour Photo, from People's Drug, and from Fox Photo. All right. We all had I hope I got that regionally right. We all had duplicates. Get rid of the doubles. You don't need them. All right. Get rid of the doubles. Get rid of the I call them generic landscapes. A generic landscape is like, it's a beach. I don't know what beach it is. It's just, or it's a mountain. It's nothing on it. There's nothing to your family. You can hopefully get this from 8 boxes to like 3 boxes by doing this. And then I always say, like, pictures, modern pictures of people you don't know who they are. Right? Like, I went through my college pictures just a couple weeks ago when I moved, and I was like, man, I can't remember this guy's name. I remember I didn't like him, but I can't remember his name. And then I'm like, should I keep it or should I get rid of it?
Yeah, that's one thing, Matt, that our grandparents were so much better about, is actually writing people's names down or locations on the back of photos, which we just have, we have not done.
And that's one thing I'll argue, like when you're going through, I say like an hour every other night. Don't do it all the time. You don't want it to become a job, because then you won't enjoy it. Genealogy can be really addictive, like super addictive. So like, be warned, like limit it. It can't become your life, right? But like, you need to start writing things down. I think it's okay to have like a temporary, like use a guest room or the second bedroom as a place to lay that all out. It really is enjoyable, and it brings a lot of happiness, but just be careful with the amount you keep. Trim it down. You don't need it all. And don't be afraid of photo digitization. I do own a photo digitization company. It's called Memories by Matt Paxton. I love it. It's a great, in fact, everybody, if you go to mylegacylist.com, You can get the first 100 pictures for free. We'll digitize them, but
That's great.
don't send thousands. That's a waste of your money. Like, you gotta trim it down, and that's on you. All right. Don't pay me money to digitize 10,000 pictures. Let me digitize like 500.
Matt, what was the Roots conference that you just mentioned?
Roots Tech 2021. It is run in most of the genealogy world is run by the Mormon Church. And there's a company called Family Search. We do a lot of work with them and Ancestry.com, but it's Roots Tech. It actually starts today, and it's free. It's free to the world. It's free to sign up. Go to rootstech.org. It's a wonderful organization. I love it. I mean, I've really just fallen in love with it. In fact, I'm speaking there tomorrow. And you'll learn about all types of photo techniques and how to research. I mean, I'm telling you, it can take over your life, but it's really awesome.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for your time today. It sounds like your website legacy list has a lot of good information on it. Again, to everybody who attended, thank you so much. We will send you the recording. We will also do our best to try to answer all the unanswered questions via email that we send out here in the next few days. So again, thank you.
You can do it. Don't let it bog you down. Just try. Work 30 minutes every other night. You can start.
And thank you to our sponsor, Sequoia Living. We appreciate everything that they do for our community in the Bay Area. And again, sequoialiving.org is the website if you would like to learn more. So Matt, thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you again soon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.